green light when you're going to talk, I guess.
Joe, I've seen them all the time.
So,
Mine might be.
well, I'll just put it right there. That's long enough.
Oh, no, that's fine. I just need to sneak in. Oh, they're good.
Make sure he's a battery. He doesn't have battery?
Nope.
John didn't get battery.
Did we ever get a password for the life? No, didn't sound like it.
You want my packet, you can take that.
No, I got hotspot.
All right. It is 6:30. This is a regular meeting of the Arlington City Council. My name is Rich Nickel, mayor, and I'll be presiding January 4th, 6:30 p.m. At this time, would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next on the agenda is swearing in of our newly elected and appointed council members. And we'll do it in the order that's on the agenda. Matt Sharpie, would you come forward, please? I requested that we just take about 5 seconds or so we can get a picture right before we start reading. Before we start talking.
So may I have your hand up?
Oh, okay.
Oh. Or is it this other one?
Right in.
Raise your right hand. There you go.
No, you're the right. Okay, did you get your picture?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Ladies first. What a gentleman.
Okay. I, Matt Sharpie,
I, Matt Sharpie,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and the Charter of the City of Arlington,
and the Charter of the City of Arlington,
and to discharge faithfully
and to discharge faithfully
the duties devolving upon me
the duties devolving upon me
as council member of the City of Arlington
as council member of the City of Arlington
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment.
Congratulations. And
I have to sign one and give it to you.
Yes, one copy is for you and one copy is from me for the file, so. Copy one. Goes for everybody, and one copy back. Joe. Thank you.
John Thomas, would you come forward?
Oh, I signed.
I did. I hear it first.
Thank you.
It's the same. Never
Okay,
changed.
pause a little bit first.
You raise your right hand.
And
John, can you take this a step forward? Thank you.
very good.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Now it's your turn.
Have to get over here more.
Record history.
For everybody.
Good, okay. I, John Thomas,
I, John Thomas,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and the Charter of the City of Arlington,
and the Charter of the City of Arlington,
and to just discharge faithfully
and to discharge faithfully
the duties devolving upon me
the duties of
as a council member for the City of Arlington
as council member of the City of Arlington
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment.
Welcome aboard. Okay.
I get one copy.
There we go.
Sounds like alcohol in here. Smelling alcohol. Craig, can you just step in there? That should be good. So that he's close to the flag.
You wanna just do it? Just do it? You feel like no? Or maybe.
Raise your right hand. Done.
You wanna raise your sheet of paper?
You're not gonna do it.
I, Craig Buss,
I, Craig Woods,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and the Charter of the City of Arlington,
and the Charter of the City of Arlington,
and to discharge faithfully
and to discharge faithfully
the duties devolving upon me
the duties devolving upon me
as council member of the City of Arlington. As council member
as council member of the City of Arlington
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
Congratulations. Welcome aboard.
Carefully, please. Yeah, you're gonna have cracked hands.
All right. Last but not least.
Joe, take just this little tiny switch forward. Thank you.
Usually don't have to look up at.
Okay.
All right.
Now I have to take my. I promise you I was smiling. Then we'll show off.
Yeah. All right. I, Joseph Morgan,
I, Joseph Morgan,
do
do
solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
the Constitution of Minnesota,
and the Charter of the City of Arlington,
and the Charter of the City of Arlington,
and to just discharge faithfully
and to discharge faithfully
the duties devolving upon me
the duties devolving upon me
as council member of the City of Arlington
as council member of the City of Arlington
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Congratulations to the newly elected.
Craig, I need a copy of yours.
I can't say I'm elected, I've been appointed both times.
Well, I put a pointer. Go up there.
All right, moving along, we will have roll call. Councilmember Batcher. Here. Councilmember Morgan.
Here.
Councilmember Thomas.
Here.
Councilmember Buss.
Yeah.
Councilmember Sharpie.
Here.
Members are present. Also at the table this evening on my left is City Administrator Newsom. Is Ross Arneson joining us on the phone or is he not? No?
I'm here, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, thank you very much. Ross Arneson remotely.
We have other people remotely as well, don't we?
Yes.
Do we?
Can you not scroll?
Who else is connected to the meeting remotely, please? You could state your name.
Kirby's here.
Kirby? Anyone else?
And Jamie.
Thanks, Jamie.
Okay, anyone else?
Matt Nelson's on here too, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right, at this point, we'll go to the agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda?
No.
Any changes? Anyone? All right, the motion is in order to approve the agenda.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Sharkey, second by Councilmember Batchor to approve the agenda as published. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Moving on to the consent agenda. And there are 2 items this evening. Item A, approval of the bills. Item B, approval of December 21st council minutes. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Morgan, second by Councilmember Batchor to approve the consent agenda as read. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Moving on to addressing the council. Is there anyone here this evening or here remotely that wishes to address the council? Anyone? Hearing none, we'll move on to announcements. Are there any? No announcements? No communication? Okay. Moving on to item 9A, December Public Works Report. Maintenance Supervisor Weckworth, you've got the floor. Kirby? Are you
Kirby?
there?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
There it is.
Okay.
He's over there.
Go ahead. Can you hear us?
You're muted.
Kirby,
Oh.
you muted yourself. Highway, did you get something?
No, it's fine.
I could hear him before.
He muted himself.
Oh.
Let me see if I can.
I have a new keyboard. Is it not
There you go.
right?
All right.
Go ahead.
He muted himself again.
Can Jamie go first while I try to get this fixed?
I hear you again, Kirby.
No, it's good. Now it's good.
I know, but I'm trying to read.
Go ahead, Kirby.
Oh yeah.
He does something. He's hungry.
Every time I'm pulling up my update, I get muted.
Oh.
Could I print that out quick? Could Jamie go first?
Sure.
Is she ready?
Jamie, are you ready?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
All right. Good evening, you guys. Just a couple quick things. We have now expanded the medic coverage to kind of blend into the weekends. So now we've kind of opened it up from 6A to 6P for our paramedics to offer up their ALS services to both the communities and the hospital. Yeah, just trying to utilize our timeframes to kind of see about getting more of those interfacility transfers. I've been trying to compile up the data for this last year here, and we landed on the ICR number is 378. So that what that means is basically we had 378 calls. They could be cancellations, standbys, interfacility transfers, 911s, mutual aid requests, so on and so forth. That number is not very accurate. I found a few ICR number discrepancies, so I'm kind of fishing through that so I can find out the exact number that we would need for the annual report. Other than that, in regards to, you may have kind of heard through the grapevine that there was an incident on the 23rd during a snowstorm. Our second crew was sent out on a 911, and on our way back with the patient, we unfortunately, due to visibility and road conditions, we went in the ditch. But nobody got hurt, injured. Everybody is doing good. We were able to get pulled out. We we were kind of stuck in there for a while, but other than that, I'm still waiting on a quote from North Central Ambulance regarding the damages that occurred to the rear bumper. We're looking at waiting on a quote for the subframe assembly. So it's essentially just the complete subframe to the back end of the ambulance. Otherwise, it is roadworthy, it is safe, and we have it back in service. But yeah, unfortunately, that blizzard kind of sucked it to us. So other than that, I don't have anything else. Did you guys have any questions?
Any questions at all, Gene?
Was that is that the newer ambulance or the older one?
No, that was the old one, the diesel. The new one was actually out on a 911 approximately 5 to 10 minutes prior to us getting a second 911. And I was able to take EMT and an EMR and myself on that second one because I was in Arlington due to the weather. So.
Any other questions? Thank you, Jamie.
You're welcome.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you guys too.
All right, is Kirby ready?
I'm ready this time.
All right.
Okay, sorry about
Take it
that.
away.
I guess the main thing the last month is we finally had some snow. We were out 3 times ourselves, and then 2 of them were blowable and snow removable snows. Along with snow events, that leaves us with a couple days after usually of detail cleanup and then maintenance on equipment. Had the street sweeper hauled up to St. Paul to McQueen to get some repair work done after the sweeping season. Nothing real major. Had a couple street light issues to take care of. One of them was a new light that I requested an actual new light to be covered by the 5-year warranty. They sent me a new ballast. I tried that today. It didn't work. So we have a street light out yet on the corner of 4th Avenue and Main Street. So I'll be waiting on a new light for that. Daniel Hughes, our maintenance worker, is off his 6-month probationary period. He made it through that. We had a little excitement with some Christmas decoration getting torn down by a semi truck. If I remember right, I think it was last week, or maybe the week before. But at this point, it sounds like it did some damage to Why Not building, ripped out the anchors, and it sounds like the League of Minnesota Cities is kind of fronting that argument with the trucking company's insurance at this point.
Do we know the level, how high was that cable?
Well, without measuring it, I know when we have the Arladazzle floats go through, I think it's a 13-foot, 6-inch clearance or height limit they have. It's got to be at least 14 feet. The cable itself must be, add on 4 feet, 5 feet, it must be 19 to 20 feet up. And it might depend. I've never measured them. But those were put up, I think, I don't even know. I wouldn't know when. I think they've been up there quite a while. I guess moving along, I did our tree order for next spring. Ordered 30 trees from Bailey's Nursery in St. Paul, 6 different species for variety. From my understanding, they're to be used for residents who want to replace dying trees in their yards, and some are to replace boulevard trees. Was working on the ice skating rink in the beginning of December when it got nice and cold, and then we had warm-up spells, then we had snowfalls, and then we had holidays, and I had some time off because we didn't have daycare, and Daniel isn't really trained in on that yet, so we are planning on still getting the skatable ice. Hopefully soon. Waiting for the next kind of real cold snap to do it. We got to do it in little layers with the water tank. So you need a few days of cold to do it. Yeah, I guess that's kind of the key stuff for the most part.
So Kirby, the light that you said was going out or was out, is that the one that's on Main Street and 17, East Main Street and 17, the one that's flickering all the time? Or is that
Yeah.
the one that you're talking about?
That's the one I'm talking about, yes.
Okay, because both of them on that, what would it be, the east side of 17 on Main Street there, both of them were flickering, I noticed. The one worse than the other, but.
Okay. I guess, yeah, when I wasn't doing that tonight, but I thought I've seen that before too, but then it stays on after it flickers for a little bit. But I'll keep an eye on that for sure. But yeah, I don't know. I was told that it usually, for how many we replace, there can be a few that are defective. So far, we just have the one. So we seem to be having pretty good luck with them.
Okay, any other questions for Kirby?
The truck that took the light down, what were they hauling, where were they at, I mean, I'm assuming it wasn't a flatbed with paper on it. Was it equipment, was it a box van?
From what I understand, I thought the chief said it was I didn't see it. I think he said it was a food truck. It must have been a box truck of some kind.
Okay, so like a dry van with a reefer?
It might have had a reefer, yeah. I guess.
Yeah. Do we get a lot of that kind of traffic through there, or did this guy not know where he was going?
Yeah, could have. I think we've had semis go under there before without trouble.
Yeah, I wouldn't think.
But that's not a truck route. That's not a truck route.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of assuming.
So
So-
I think a Christmas light will hold up to.
No.
If they're good ones, they will.
That should grow. That's what I was wondering about the cable.
Yeah.
Like something happened with the cable, that cable strong enough to rip the wall down.
So to me, where I'm rationing this in my head, we had a semi that was in a non-truck route area, right?
Yep.
Okay. And the truck measured itself 13 whatever, right? So the MnDOT or the Department of Transportation standard is X. Did anybody measure the truck or make sure that we had our ducks in a row?
Craig, the League of Minnesota Cities is actually coming out tomorrow. They're gonna look at our main streets because I told them the truck route was on the street over. They're going to come take a look at that. The belief is the trucker is supposed to know how high their truck is.
Mhm.
It is their responsibility,
Yep.
not ours.
Yep, that's what I was making sure that we didn't have something fluke that they're gonna find.
So I talked to the league, the League of Minnesota Cities insures us.
Sweet.
So they'll be out tomorrow.
And all those signs got replaced as far as truck routes, so they're very visible.
They are, I remember just seeing the truck route signs actually.
Some reason like 13.9, is that like?
I
a
think
box truck?
the state is, well, federal is 13.8. And anything below that has to be marked.
So it'd probably be good for us to just assure that we are at that. or above
13,
that.
yeah, whatever the
If
state.
it's at the cable's at 19. I mean, they are up there.
Yeah.
The cables are that high, and I mean, what could vary is the garland that hangs from them. That's what he caught, was the garland, and it wound up dragging the whole thing out. But
Maybe some strong stuff.
you know, those cables aren't something we take down, or those have been up there long before my time, so they're just.
Is the garland like a heavy duty rope?
But I can't imagine.
Kirby just did a good job putting it up.
Yeah, I wasn't too happy to see that get ripped down. But, I can't imagine cable stretching. Maybe it does, but if anything, I don't know. Nothing really was done different this year.
So they got it on the stack or the box or the cab?
The box.
corner of it.
Okay, anything else for Kirby?
Yeah.
Anything else for Kirby? All right, we'll move on then to item C, Lions Park Bench.
Nancy is online. She
Oh.
was gonna join us by
Oh, okay.
Central.
Nancy Hathaway, are you online?
I'm here.
There.
Okay, you've got the floor.
Okay, well, Amy asked me to update you on the status of the community park bench, and
Nancy, just so you know, there's a picture of the bench in front of all the council members. They're looking at it right now.
okay, great. The community really stepped forward on the plastics collection and helped us meet our 6-month goal of collecting 500 pounds of plastic store bags and the other film plastic, and we completed it in about a 6-week time frame. So yeah, it was
I
great.
don't have any more.
It was don't worry, okay. The amount of non-usable plastics, such as the bags that had some food scraps in them yet, or there were some non-recyclable plastics included when we sorted through it, those were really minimal though. So we did not need to throw out a lot of non-usable plastic that was recycled. After entering the pounds of plastic collected for November and December and sending it on its way to Trex, we had collected 513 pounds, which is enough for a free bench. So along with the city employees, the Arlington Lions have chosen a treehouse brown bench, which is the bench that's in the picture that is in front of you. The bench is actually 48 inches in length and weighs about 57 pounds. The Arlington Lions do not have a preferred site for the bench, and we've asked Amy and Kirby for suggestions. So if you have any suggestions, please let them know. The Arlington Lions are not eligible for another free bench until after May 22nd of this year. However, the Arlington Garden Club has applied and will be taking over the project beginning tomorrow. In order to obtain a bench for the Memorial Park, their ongoing garden project there. So when we look at where to place the bench, you know, maybe not another one in the Memorial Park. Four Seasons Park, the Lions, you know, have done quite a bit there in the last several years. So if there's another area for the bench, it would be great. A huge thank you does go to Jerry's Home Quality Foods for being not only a collection site, but also for sending the sorted and weighed plastic on its bi-weekly Spartan Nash trucks as the next step in the journey to trucks. And also a huge thank you goes to Hagemiller Lumber for being a collection site and also providing us indoor space to sort the plastic, store it until we can place it on the trucks at Jerry's. Because some weeks we were overwhelmed with plastic. Those were usually the weeks following the Saturday collection at the city parking lot, because we also go up there twice a month when the recycling truck is there. It was truly a community project. I was actually overwhelmed. I knew that we would do well, but I really was overwhelmed with the amount of plastic that we received. So on behalf of the Lions Club, though, I would like to request permission to place a plaque on the bench once it is received. And it has been ordered as of today, last night. And I would like the plaque to say something like a community bench project, a project of the Arlington Lions Club in partnership with the Arlington Chamber of Commerce. So,
Nice.
any questions or comments for me that I can relay to the Arlington Lions?
Looks like this community loves their plastic.
You know, as soon as Kurt was at the Mink was at the chamber meeting when Laura Gilman and I presented it to the chamber as a possible partnership with them. And then he had the article in the paper, and I had several calls immediately after that, and we weren't even at the point where we could collect the plastic yet. But people felt that they couldn't put all those grocery bags and plastic bags into the landfill, and they weren't able to recycle them with the regular recycling. So they were saving them, and we're really happy that we were going to start collecting them. And of course, we get the bench out of it. So I have some ideas. I talked to Tim Hagemiller on how to mount the bench when we do receive it, and Kirby probably has ideas on how to do that also. So that'll be our next step.
Nancy, you talked about the plaque, which is kind of somewhere along the lines where I was going to ask you, is if there would be a way to engrave, could they engrave what you were suggesting for the plaque right into like the top back bench part? You see that on some of them.
That isn't an option that I'm aware of. I can check with a couple of the other communities that already have received benches and see, but I know they were going to put plaques on them and see what they, but I guess I was envisioning something like the Girl Scouts did with the benches that we, that we donated to down at the Four Seasons Park. So if it's okay with the council to go ahead, I'm not sure if there's any, I guess I don't know if there's any regulations, and I didn't talk to Amy about it.
I think, I like the idea of a plaque on the bench.
Yeah.
And it definitely has to say community project, because it is community. So.
Nancy, you said the garden club's taking over now, and
Yep.
then can other groups, if they want to take on this, do it as well, or is it got to be certain groups?
No, it doesn't have to be certain groups, but I wouldn't do it at the same time that the garden club is, because it's going to interfere with the collection. If the garden club has as great a success as we do, they'll finish their recycling prior to the Arlington Lions being able to take it over again. We do want to continue it at the end of May when we're able to, or whenever, whoever's collecting at that time finishes it. So that would be one of the stipulations. It does need to be a group that's willing to go through the plastics and sort it, because you don't want to contaminate the whole shipment. And just we did have one bag of plastic that was collected, and we had to throw the whole thing because there was a real strong smell of gasoline in it, and it might have just been one item in there, but it contaminated the whole bag. We also had another bag that we were going through, and it was all store bags, and they were all really clean, but we could tell it came from a household that had smoking in the house. And I got to one of the last bags, and I went, "Yep, this proves it. Somebody left their lighter in one of the bags." So there's things like that. Plus, if there's food in, like the baggies, you can recycle those as long as they're clean. But sometimes we've had some where the food was still in there, or maybe somebody had takeout and they threw the grocery bag or the store bag in to be recycled, but there was ketchup or something in it, and those have to be tossed. But with what we recycled, there's 513 pounds less in the landfills right now.
My understanding is plastic bags used for cellulose insulation can be recycled.
Yeah, they're the right, at least most of them. The ones that we have, as long as they're cleaned out.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they are the number 4 was on the ones that we recycled.
What about softener salt bags?
Those are also okay. We do need to cut off the
handles?
the handles. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they need to be clean on the inside.
Okay.
So a lot of times, if you're able, the cellulose bags that we had, the first batch that we had been cut open, so they were perfectly clean. We could tell that there was no insulation in them. The second group that we had, there was some insulation in it, so we ended up having to clean all that out before we could use it. But
I appreciate all your work, hard work, and that one involved.
it was fun, actually. But I'm glad the garden club's taking it over.
So what, one organization is allowed to do this every how many months, or how does that work?
Well, you have a 6-month period of time.
Okay. And if you get it done sooner, you still gotta wait out your 6 months.
Correct,
Okay,
correct. So the
Right.
garden club now will have 6 months. Larry's filled out the, Larry Giesecke has filled out the application, and I would guess he'll have the email tomorrow with the information to tell him, you know, when their 6 months is up, and also giving them access to a portal to record the amount of plastic that they recycle. And actually, it's all pretty well automated, because I didn't think I'd hear until after the weekend. And I put in the amount of plastic we recycled for for December, and I almost immediately received an email saying that we were over the 500 pounds. So
Nice.
it's pretty slick.
anything else for Nancy? Great project, great project.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Thanks, Nancy.
You're welcome.
Item D, choose Arlington update for May.
Do I need a microphone or not? I could talk about it up too, I guess. So about 18 months ago, Amy and I, on behalf of Choose Arlington, submitted an application to Smith, Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation, for a possible grant. Choose Arlington was awarded a $20,000 grant from July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2020. And because of COVID, Smith let us go an extra 3 months, which was nice. A good chunk of the money was given to Howie and Brandon Brinkman, so they could renovate the old shoe store and buy equipment. And now today, there's 4 businesses in there. Pat's wife has a photography business. Rich's daughter has a designs and blinds business. And then there's a flooring business in there, and a financial business is coming in. So
How we set it up as an incubator space, which means he has reduced rents to bring those new businesses into town to have a Main Street presence.
and if you haven't seen it, now Amy said some of you might have to get your picture taken.
They do, a lot of them have to get their pictures
Okay.
taken.
So if you haven't, yeah, so if you have a chance, you can tour it at that time. I've been in there a couple times. It is really, really nice in there. And they did a great job on that. So and added 4 businesses, which is great. Some other things we did with Choose Arlington, we did a community survey. That was over a year ago. And I did have the results in the paper. Majority of the people in town want new businesses and new housing in town. And also we have come up with a Facebook page where we try to market the community, and Amy's been real good with that, handling that, with us getting her pictures and other things. We started a welcome bag that's been talked about since I came to town 35 years ago. A welcome bag for new businesses, and we will continue to go around the businesses, get little trinkets, whatever, to put in that welcome bag. Finally, marketing. We spent $4,800 marketing Arlington, the Whack and Sack waiver. And we did it up in Shakopee, Waconia, Chaska, Chanhassen. And hopefully at least it gets the Arlington name out there. And so we did that. Our future plans, we want to submit paperwork, become a 501c3, because then we can apply for more grants. And we had to close out the grant December 31st. And Amy really helped a lot with that. She has a lot of experience. So I know the city
And the new members will find this out too, you know, city always gets criticized, but you look at it, I mean, there's been COVID, but I think we have like 11 new businesses in town. There's some in the TSC building, the old floral shop, the bank annex. And I think, I always count, I think 22 new houses since the city has waived the whack and sack charges. So good things are really happening in town. And that's not just because of Choose Arlington. It's Choose Arlington, it's the city council, the EDA, everybody working together. So
Yeah, when we were working on closing out the grant, you hear a lot of woe is me, nothing's happening here. That's not true. When we compiled everything that's happening, just today we went out, Kylie and I were out and we saw, you know, a lot's flagged up for new home construction again. Not every town can say they have homes being built. Not every town can say, hey, we just had 2 new businesses move into Main Street. We have the sports memorabilia is brand new. The floral shop is brand new. We need to celebrate those things. I don't think we look at the positive stuff enough.
I think one thing I always say too is, not against restaurants, but it's like, we don't need another hamburger joint, another business that's gonna compete against a business. So it's nice, the blinds and designs is new, photography, the sports memorabilia, now a floral shop, which we desperately needed. So compared to little towns, I think Arlington is doing very well. So any questions? One thing, Matt's on Choose Arlington, Amy's on there. We have a few other people. Because of COVID, we haven't really met, but we have kind of done some things behind the scenes. So the big thing was this grant and closing it out. So if anybody has any questions about anything.
I like the fact that, you know, that Choose Arlington was chosen how many years ago? 3 years, probably 3 years ago, 4 years ago?
Yeah, it started with the extension about three
Right.
years ago, and it kind of worked its way into Choose Arlington.
And I mean, every time I see it, I thought, you know, that's real. That's
That
gonna
was
stick around
Marketing
for a while.
Hometown America. We
That's
did that
right,
with the
that's
University of
right.
Minnesota.
You know,
That's how
it's a
all
good
started.
slogan, and I think the more exposure it gets, the stronger it's going to resonate with the public.
Like I said, it's not just Choose Arlington, it's the city council, EDA, chamber, chamber. I mean, everybody kind of working together. I don't think there's been more new housing in Arlington than the rest of the county combined. And I've got a lot of money, probably more new businesses in Arlington than the whole rest of the county combined. So something,
Yeah.
any questions?
Thanks, Kurt.
Thank you.
All right, I'll move on to item 10, second reading of ordinance 332. And for this, we turn it over to City Attorney Arneson. Ross, are you there?
Yes. This is the second reading of the franchise renewal agreement with Mediacom. And this takes the place of the old agreement, which tied us into the joint cable commission with other towns in the county. This new agreement is one-on-one between Mediacom and the city of Arlington. And the primary difference is that the franchise fees will be paid directly to Arlington, and Arlington's city council will have total control over the use of those funds. And other than that, the franchise agreement, which is rather lengthy, is I would characterize as a very standard agreement and is worded very similarly to the ones we've had in place over the years. So, I would recommend that the council consider adopting it.
Do we have a policy in place talking about a fund for these funds to go? a line or a place for them to be held until we decide what or how to use those franchise
I'm gonna
fees?
guess that our auditors would say not to set up a specific fund for it, just like the capital improvement fund, they said do not set up a specific fund for it, I just need to keep track of it.
Track it separately. Okay, any other questions about the ordinance 332? We will take this up later on down the list of ordinances to adopt the ordinance. This is the second reading then of ordinance 332. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll move ahead. Resolution 1-2021. This is a resolution appointing city administrator and authorizing the city of Arlington to enter into the contract with Universal. Their contract and amendments to the contract were sent out along with the last page planning and zoning administrator duties, which she is graciously handling now until that position is filled. So I'll open up to any comments, questions about her contract.
Attorney Arneson has reviewed the contract before tonight's meeting.
So really, the main contract
Stayed the same.
stayed the same. It's just
Except to change my step increase
right.
and add the planning and zoning rules to my job description.
Is there a stipend for the planning and zoning portion?
No.
I mean, it's for me, I mean, I don't think that's gonna be a forever thing that's gonna go along with the city administrator's job. And I think having Amy take it on, that's very gracious of her, but I think it deserves some kind of stipend for it. So that's the only thing that I think I would like to comment on that piece. I mean, it wouldn't be what we pay, you know, a planning and zoning director by any means, but it should be something.
Should this be amended to include that if the council feels it should be included, or should that be taken up as a separate item?
Attorney Arneson, what would you recommend? Would you recommend amending the contract if council, or just approving a stipend later on?
Well, is the issue regarding if we hire or contract out that function, that we would determine what kind of a monetary change would then take place? Did I hear that correctly, or?
I guess my idea is just to put a stipend amount towards planning and zoning for Amy. Not that that would equal to what we would pay a planning and zoning director in the future, just, you know, something more than just under her contract right now. Being that it will go away.
Yeah.
Will go away.
Well, yeah, I don't see anything.
It will go away, I promise.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that
It goes away.
It's
It's just, it's a huge workload, and I think she needs to be compensated for the extra work that she's doing. I mean, we just heard from Kurt, and I mean, he said a lot of things were true. I mean, there's a lot of building that's going on in town. You know, she's doing a great job with EDA, and that is part of her contract. But just adding that planning and zoning piece, I mean, it's you know, more nights a week, it's more hours dealing with all of the paperwork and such that goes along with it. So, and she is salaried, right? So any extra hours that she's putting in for planning and zoning is just kind of right on top of everything.
Was that part of the consideration when they redid the contract that she was going to take that on? Or is that separate?
Well, we had a planning and zoning administrator and he left.
Yeah.
For greener pastures, his own greener pastures, so, we have not hired anybody for that position.
Yeah, that wasn't the question.
Yes, so,
The question was, when a new contract was written up, was there any compensation for taking on? No,
No.
yes, I agree.
No, it was not. I'm just wondering if we decide to do something like that, we just do it on a monthly basis, so that at such a time.
So it's separate from the
Like,
contract.
Separate from the contract, so that is, when planning and zoning does have a full-time person or whatever time it happens to be, a separate person, then the stipends will go away.
Right, and it's not attached to my
Not attached to the contract.
well, then maybe the best thing to do is to strike anything in here that's referring to planning and zoning that wasn't in your previous contract, and then put that in with the stipend. Put that in with the
It
stipend.
just kind of is, administrator will self-perform duties of planning, zoning, that my self-position still, so it's kind of once the position
It's,
still.
yeah,
So it's, we're covered there. It's whether, so we agree to, do a stipend there, that makes it, so we can do it monthly or.
I'll still do the planning and zoning.
Right.
duties, So it should be in there. Cause these have to be, you have to have a new contract with me each year.
But would it be benefit to us and Amy if you would put it in for planning and zoning as when time follows or when director is absent or we don't have one, or so that way, in case before next year's end, if you do have someone come, they're here for 2 months, and then we throw it back on you, and then let's hope that doesn't.
I don't think you're gonna get that.
You love the mule. It's not this.
Yeah, because we don't hire somebody thinking that they're gonna leave.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't hire the last one thinking that he was gonna leave within whatever. I mean, you barely get to know what you're doing and then you're gone.
Whether it's 6 months a year.
Yeah.
I mean, you take all your time training that person and they're still not fully trained and then they leave. Really sucks, but it puts extra pressure on her.
I like
just
the
feel it.
idea of having it as a separate item completely.
Yep.
And, you focus in on what we hired her for. And then we say, okay, now we are doing this, and we realize it's extra work. And decide what that number is, what that stipend is.
Yeah, I don't have
Whether
an
that's a
idea.
monthly or that's a, I mean, it probably should be monthly type thing. And then have that be a separate, motion to approve that portion of it.
We do have an employee relations committee, which is going to meet later this month in a week or so. Probably that could be something that we recommend to the council what that number might be.
Well, I'd like to see that happen and then bring it back to the next council meeting.
Right.
if we can.
Are there any other items like that in the contract that we need to itemize out?
I don't think so.
No.
Okay.
It's about the same as last year, except for that piece.
I'm just a little concerned about the way that it will perform these functions right now and how it's hired. That leads you to believe that, okay, she's gonna perform those at that number. So having that verbiage in there is kind of contradicting the separate stipend, right? Because the way this reads as well, she's just gonna do it for that.
Yeah.
And that's not
That's what the
necessarily,
contract is.
that's what it's gonna say, and then we're gonna combat it with something else. I feel like that has to be taken out of there. To where it's like, what we were normally, separate thing, but
Yeah, we can strike the planning and zoning reference in there, and for the contract piece.
That would be my thought.
Yeah.
So can I do this? Can I say, I'll make a motion to, or I'll introduce resolution 2021. A resolution appointing city administrator and authorizing the city of Arlington to enter a contract with Amy Newsom, with striking anything to do with planning and zoning in the contract.
Yep. That works.
Second.
Okay, resolution 1-2021, introduced by Councilmember Batchor, second by Councilmember Morgan. That is a resolution appointing city administrator and authorizing the city of Arlington to enter into a contract with Amy Newsom. The changes would be any reference to planning and zoning at this time would be struck from the resolution.
I just like to say that it is going to be revisited
Yes.
with employee relations and then brought back as a
Yep.
separate.
Second. Yep. More discussion. Hearing none, vote by roll call. Councilmember Morgan.
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Councilmember Buss.
Yeah.
Councilmember Sharkey.
Yes.
Councilmember Batchor.
Yes,
5 yes votes, none opposed, resolutions adopted. Resolution 2-2021, a resolution designating the official city depository as the Arlington State Bank.
This is a resolution that we have to adopt each year, designating our depository, which has been our local bank. Always.
we'll introduce resolution 2-2021, resolution is designating the official city depository.
Second.
Resolution 2-22, introduced by Councilmember Batchor, second by Councilmember Sharkey, and that is a resolution designating the official city depository as the Arlington State Bank. Discussion? Vote by roll call. Councilmember Buss.
Yes.
Councilmember Sharkey.
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan.
Yes.
Councilmember Batchor.
Yep.
5 votes in favor, none opposed. The resolution is adopted. Resolution 3-2021, resolution authorizing signature authority for city accounts.
And these have kind of stayed the same, just so you know. Michelle, I think Tom was the vice
He was
mayor
planning that.
for a short time last year. And these are the only changes. Michelle, Lisa, and I are still on.
I want to ask a question now about it.
Yeah.
Is there a number that those individuals are willing to, spend or sign off on?
They are just authorized to have authorization to sign for the city. In other words, if Michelle would be taking over as vice mayor, then right after a council meeting, she could come in and sign checks instead of me doing it.
And two of
There
them.
are two.
But it always
that
takes,
have to be
it
on
always
it.
takes two people to sign.
So there's no.
Like,
no
I couldn't
spending
write on the
limit.
check.
No,
No, the mayor can't go and spend there,
No, no.
neither can I.
Yeah,
and
there
others
has to
can.
be 2 signatures on every check.
yeah, and when I,
And council approves something.
Yep.
But there is a dollar amount though that Amy can
But that's-
spend, approved by herself without council.
without council.
What is that?
It's $3,500 for myself, and department heads like Kirby and the chief of police can spend up to $1,000. So,
That was kind of what I was
Yeah.
questioning. Trying to figure out.
Mhm.
Sounds good. I'll make a motion to, the resolution 3 of 2021. Second.
Resolution 3-2021, introduced by Councilmember Morgan, second by Councilmember Thomas. That is a resolution authorizing signature authority for city accounts as follows: mayor, vice mayor, city administrator, and deputy city clerk. Any discussion? Hearing none, vote by roll call. Councilmember Sharkey.
Yes.
Councilmember Buss.
Yes.
Councilmember Batchor.
Yes,
Councilmember Morgan.
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
5 votes in favor, none opposed, the resolution is adopted. Resolution 4-2021, this is a resolution designating official city newspaper.
This needs to be done annually as well. It's pretty straightforward. It's designating our local newspaper, which we run legal notices, and it's then our official newspaper to run all our required legal notices.
I'll introduce resolution 4-2021, designating the official city newspaper.
Second.
Resolution 4-2021, a resolution designating the official city newspaper, introduced by Councilmember Batchor, seconded by Councilmember Sharkey. Further questions, further discussion? Hearing none, take the roll call. Councilmember Batchor.
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan.
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Councilmember Bush.
Yes.
Councilmember Sharkey.
Yes.
5 in favor, none opposed, the resolution is adopted. Resolution 5-2021, a resolution approving the 2021 city calendar.
I hope you had a chance to look at this. I'm not gonna go through it contains all of our meeting dates for the year 2021, but they are subject to change, and there's a note on there, and it includes the holidays
And the different committees.
and the different committees.
I'll introduce resolution 5-2021, resolution approving the 2021 city calendar.
I'll second.
Resolution 5-2021, introduced by Councilmember Batchor, seconded by Councilmember Thomas. It is a resolution approving the 2021 city calendar. With that roll call, Councilmember Bush.
Yes.
Councilmember Sharkey.
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan.
Yes.
Councilmember Batchor.
Yes.
5 votes in favor, none opposed, resolution is adopted. Resolution 6-2021, this is a resolution ratifying mayoral appointments and committees.
You'd like to speak to your opponents?
There was one that I was,
Yes.
I was kind of wondering if maybe on that, the school and education one, or maybe community education one, if, maybe Lauren Gill.
Let's see, where are we at? I'm trying to find that one. Community education,
On the very end.
at the very end?
Yeah, community
Community
ed.
ed.
Yeah.
Community ed. I believe these. Let's see. I'm on there for non-voting.
Because there's a couple that are from the community, right?
Right, there are 2, but I think we probably need the council representative. And that's the part of Michelle would be. So, right, am I on the right one?
Yeah, I was just wondering if maybe she would want to join in the community
Oh, I see.
number. That's kind of her.
Yeah,
Background.
I didn't check with either Karen Tickleman or Eva Traxler as far as if they want to continue on or not. But certainly, if one of them would not want to continue on, we could ask that. Does council want me to? Usually, if somebody's term isn't up, although these don't have a term, if somebody's term is.
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting taking anyone off.
Oh, okay.
I just wondering if maybe that was the way.
Right, so is there like a rule about after you get off council that you can't be on?
1 year.
For 1 year.
Oh, it is.
You can't go on.
Yeah. So in this case, that would not be. Yeah.
Is there a rule or a determination of how many that, like a limit of how many people you can have on, or is there just general rule of thumb?
On which committee?
Any of them?
For any of them?
Yes.
Yeah, most of them are controlled by a
Set number.
ordinance or
Okay.
policy that sets up.
Ordinance.
Yeah.
Good enough for me.
And of course, for new ones, the number 2021, 2022, 2023, that's at the end of that particular year, then that individual's term expires. And they can be, they can run again if they choose to. So. There are a couple vacancies, planning and zoning, there's 1 vacancy, and I believe cemetery has 1 vacancy. And that's something I would, if anyone has a suggestion of someone I could contact to maybe fill. And planning and zoning is a little tougher. I mean, there's a lot of meetings, a lot of, I would say, quite a bit of homework.
There's a lot of homework in planning.
And it's
Gotta be something you're really passionate about.
I tried to find somebody that was in the building trade. I mean, that's what they do. They deal with those types of things, and I was not successful yet. I still would hope to find somebody to fill that open spot. Cemetery committee is not real time consuming. They maybe meet 2 or 3 times a year. I don't
They're
know.
scheduled for 4,
They're
but
scheduled
don't
for
have
4,
enough
but
on the agenda to
yeah,
be 4 times
it
a
doesn't
year. It's
happen.
probably about 2 times a year.
So that one is quite easy to fill. And I'm sure I'll probably run into somebody that. But if anybody wants to suggest a name or names that I could contact, I would be glad to work on those 2 vacancies. All right, would someone care to introduce the resolution?
I'll introduce resolution 6-2021, a resolution ratifying mayoral appointments, please.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is that John?
Yeah.
Motion by council member, I should say council member Sharp, to introduce resolution 6-2021. It is a resolution ratifying the appointments. It was seconded by council member Thomas. Further discussion? Further questions? Hearing none, we'll go by roll call. Council member Bench.
Yes.
Council member Thomas.
Yes.
Council member Morgan.
Yes.
Council member Sharkey.
Yes.
Council member Bliss.
Yes.
5 votes in favor, none opposed. The resolution is adopted. Resolution 7-2021, resolution approving extension of the Arlington sewer access connection and water access connection fee waiver program for new residential construction within Arlington. This is something that Kurt Mank alluded to. The waiver of the water access charge and sewer access charge for new construction of residential homes has been going on for 2 or 3 years. And this resolution just continues it on without any time, well, for the year 2021. For the year 2021.
And council did approve moving forward with this already, but I wanted to put it into a resolution form because we transfer money from the general fund into these enterprise funds. So I thought just to cover us, I think that we should have a resolution stating that we are approving this program and the change that was made. And I left the language in the resolution. It was originally, they had to build a home valued at $195,000. And the recommendation was made to bump that up to $210,000. As you'll see in the last paragraph.
All right, so it is 210,000, right?
Correct, that's the new value.
All right.
And most of our homes are meeting that too over.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you'd have to have a sawmill in
Yeah.
the backyard, you know, they're falling every day.
Well, even so, even once you're done building it, it's still going to come in your evaluation of that.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you have a big thing house for that, right?
So I do have a question. How, the ones that we've approved in the past, once that house, who monitors as far as the value?
I do,
Okay.
I can say it when it comes across on the building permits and taxes,
To make sure we continue to qualify.
when they're for sale.
Has there been anyone that has applied for it with the intent that in the past they spent $195,000 and they didn't reach that threshold? So they,
No, there's been a few that we've caught on building permits where they value the home too low on the building permit application, that then when we reach out to them and we talk about what it's listed at.
on the
and
county
then-
records? Or
Or what it's gonna sell for, what
what
they're,
it's gonna sell for?
and then they're over that.
Okay.
And then this is just gonna be ongoing, or is it gonna be, is that how it's worded?
Just for this year.
It's just set for this year. I think we should review it each year because we are transferring money from the general fund to cover those. So I think it's just best that council reviews it every year.
I'll introduce resolution 7-2021. Resolution waiving the last track fees.
Second.
See, Highland's name is.
Oops.
Was it?
Yeah, is the second.
Oh.
That goes back. Resolution 7-2021, introduced by Councilmember Morgan, seconded by Councilmember Batchor. This is a resolution approving an extension of the Arlington sewer access connection and water access connection for the waiver program for new residential construction within Arlington. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, with the roll call. Councilmember Bus.
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Councilmember Batchor.
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan.
Yes.
Councilmember Sharkey.
Yes.
9 votes in favor, none opposed, the resolution is adopted. Resolution 8-2021. And this is a resolution, the ordinance 322, which Attorney Arneson explained or briefly reviewed. That is the agreement with MediaCom for the city of Arlington and MediaCom.
I'll introduce resolution 8-2021 for the MediaCom agreement with the city of Arlington.
Second. Good. I'll second.
Thomas? Okay, Councilmember Morgan introduced resolution 8-2021, second by Councilmember Thomas. It is a resolution approving ordinance 322, an ordinance granting a franchise to MediaCom Minnesota LLC by the city of Arlington, Minnesota, to construct, operate, and maintain a cable system in the city of setting forth conditions, applying the grant of franchise, providing for regulation and use of the system and public right-of-way, and prescribing penalties for the violation of the provision herein. Any questions or discussion on resolution 8-2021? Hearing none, with the roll call, Councilmember Sharkey.
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan.
Yes.
Councilmember Batchor.
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Councilmember Bus.
Yes.
5 votes in favor, none opposed, the resolution is adopted. Alright, unfinished business, item number 19, discussion of allowing one non-resident city of Arlington, or Arlington citizen committees. Just a few comments by yours truly. I, in no intent when I brought this up that I was advocating for this. I was looking at a few positions that were vacant and are still vacant. Also was approached by someone who didn't live in Arlington, wondering if they could serve on a committee. So it was not my decision to make. I wanted to bring it to the council for general discussion, and hopefully we can come away tonight with a consensus of yes, let's pursue that, or absolutely not. I mean, it's a dead item. So anyhow, I had a few emails from people that said, no, we don't want non-residents. One of the
Yeah, I mean, I was a little bit woke,
Yeah.
but I did talk to a couple folks, and I got that same message.
Sure,
It was like,
sure.
what? I mean, there's no way.
And the
So
comments.
I was like, it was kind of reassuring to me that I wasn't off there wrong.
Okay, no.
So my position still stands that, you know, I'm not.
And again, the idea that was put out at that time would be the person would have to have be part or full owner of the business within the city limits of Arlington in order to become, I mean, that way they get skin in the game with paying taxes. So,
That was just ideas that were tossed around
Yep.
at the last council.
Right, well, and I think, going even further than what you just said, is that a property owner of a business in town, right?
Mhm.
So that would
Absolutely.
be, not just.
Not just a
business owner,
storefront renter,
right.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I feel like they need to be in the city of Arlington, residents of the city of Arlington as well, even with that.
I think it's a whole can of worms that's a rabbit hole I would not like to go down.
Okay.
I think if somebody outside the city limits wants to be involved with the city function, I believe they can be on like chamber, stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that, when you said that, the rabbit hole, that's kind of where my mind is going, is that, okay, we start for this, and then.
You're gonna have to let it.
Because we're making this example for this person, right? And then the next thing you know, well, we did it for that. Next thing you know, we got somebody that lives almost in Green Isle or just about Gaylord. And that's kind of where I can see it, where I can see it go.
You could have some, they say they have a business here. Yeah.
Right, I mean, the only thing that I guess I would be open to if they live within the orderly annexation, right, area, but we don't have
We don't
one.
have one.
But if we did have one, if we did have one, I would be open to discussing that, but we don't have one. So
And
until we
hopefully-
have one, I don't, yeah, I mean,
Hopefully we will this year.
Yeah, we're
That's
gonna-
gonna be a long process, but hopefully this year, hopefully we'll have another orderly annexation agreement, so.
On a yearly basis, how many requests from outside the city of Arlington do
Oh.
we get?
Very few. Yeah, this was one individual was willing, I had questions from two individuals. One was very willing to fill a spot on planning and zone. And so that's what, that caused me to just, well, maybe we should be doing this.
well, and up until this point, Darnell Hart Culverson was on planning and zoning,
Right.
and he was not in the city limits. He lived in the Burner Edition, which is right outside of, right north of Hagenmiller's, right? But he was in that orderly annexation area. When we had the orderly annexation area is when he was appointed to the committee.
Right.
So.
Yeah, they chose not to get annexed, so I petitioned, so my first year, living in our house, I needed a septic, so I had a petition, it took the whole neighborhood, everybody voted on it, and it was like 1 or 2 votes away from, taking that whole area. And then myself and the person I ended up getting it.
Right, well,
And
and
you know
in
what's-
that area specifically, the problem with that is that unless there's like a date set that this is when you're gonna be pulled into the city
Well,
of
there
Arlington, that people are constantly gonna be replacing their well, replacing their septic, and they're all gonna be on
What had
different,
happened.
yeah, and it's
So
all
there was
gonna be
one
on
person
different.
that, like, I'm on my second one, and they had like 30 grand in the septic, and they're like, you want me to do this? And they were at the lowest area, they needed a grinder pump, and it was like, all I want is not to have to deal with a well or a septic. And then when I petitioned, it was like, they went after the whole neighborhood, and I'm just saying, look, I just want my stuff.
But that's pretty normal, that's, how we do it, 'cause also I built outside of Plato, I did the same thing, and I was just outside. And, there was a business right next to me, I built it at 212, and they were on the city. And I asked if I paid even for all the costs to hook it up, could I hook up to it? They wouldn't even discuss it. Not unless I get everybody on that side of the highway.
Oh.
Yeah, and I said, well, I ain't going down that.
But since then, other people have sold the property and put it in my own. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
you're
mean,
right. You're right, though, as far as I think you'd almost have to go out maybe 5 or 10 years and say, this is the date.
Or 15
Right, so
years.
then people.
Then they plan accordingly.
Right.
Patch something together to get to that point.
I think that's the only way,
Yeah.
unless it just is annexed, but I mean, why would you wanna
Yeah, they,
do that?
yeah, it was pretty, it was close, it was only about two away from it.
So,
Okay, well, it doesn't sound like, this discussion needs to go on to any future meetings as far as non-resident. And it's not the end of the world to have a vacancy on. If you have people that are experienced and qualified on a particular committee, but you have one chair empty, it's not the end of the world. I mean, they're gonna reach some good decisions and they'll have the
And
discussion.
I would think that then the city would accommodate it as well. If there's open spots and, has it been in the paper that we have open spots?
Yeah, it's been in the paper, it's been in the
flyer.
city newsletter.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's tough sometimes to fill positions. I know Rich says that he struggles, and
this year was easier than most, but I did approach one retired contractor, and he thought about it for about a week, and he even contacted a few of the other members that were on the committee. Finally, he said, I don't think I want to devote that amount of time to it, because it was planning. It is quite involved, it can be. So we'll keep looking, and with your help, we'll find some. All right, let's move on to miscellaneous business. I don't know, is there any committee meetings? I thought there was any committee updates, but I'll ask.
Are those planning and zoning meetings, are those able to do the ring call? I don't know if that would be the thing.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, they have
We
them.
have them.
Have them. Mhm. Yeah, they have them.
They're monthly meetings, right, like the EDA, it's the same kind of commitment.
Is that third Thursday or something?
The first
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 Thursday.
Thursday, I'm sorry. First Thursday.
Yeah, so I mean,
Homework.
yeah, I mean, the packets are definitely substantial, right? And there's a lot of things that can look into, there's, what are they called? Not special meeting, not special meeting, but,
Public
hearings.
hearings for
Public hearings
conditional,
that they're involved with.
conditional use permits. They have
Not a
to,
lot of the time, though, a lot of those things I think can stay with the administrator, but some things get brought in. So, yeah, I mean, it's,
Yeah.
but then again, they're just an advisory committee anyhow, everything comes to the council at the end of the day too, so. But it is pretty solid monthly.
All right, any committee updates? I presume probably with the holidays, no committee meetings were, discussion, anything anyone wants to discuss that is not on the agenda?
I think it was on the agenda and I wasn't paying attention close enough, but I was looking at our bills.
Yes.
And there's an unpaid or the Omega Rail Management, 15,000. Maybe it sent me the kind of breakdown of it, but is there a particular reason for some of that stuff of why, is it an easement or is it city repairs of utilities that the railroad themselves is contracting to have repaired, or what's the specifics of it? And the only reason that I dove into it is because I asked the city Hutch engineer in McLeod County their arrangements, and for most of it, an easement is for the city or a property owner to gain access to the railroad, not necessarily for like underground utilities, that kind of stuff.
Attorney Arneson, are you still on Minnesota?
What's that?
Could you hear Craig's question about the railroad easement? I had sent you an email earlier today about that.
Oh, well, the history of it is that the railroads have been historically heavily favored in the legislative bodies. It was originally to give them financial incentives to continue to expand and open up the country. And so they are benefited from certain peculiar laws, one of which is that other government entities such as cities can't just take an easement by eminent domain as we can in other situations. If we cross under the tracks with a sewer line or a power line, we have to pay them, in essence, what amounts to rent to allow that easement corridor to exist. So that's the basis of it. And I know there have been questions over the years as to how many active crossings we actually have. And I think the last time that was reviewed by our city engineers was a number of years ago. Maybe it's due for another review, although I guess I'm not aware that we've actually abandoned any of the crossings, any of the sewer or water or electric lines. I know when this was first updated, there were a few old crossings that no longer existed. And I think those were deleted from the agreements. But I guess I don't recall that the council has questioned this in recent years. And so since it's been brought up, maybe we should have the city engineer eyeball it again, just to make sure we're not paying rent on any crossings that we're no longer using.
On the particularness of it is it says the fee details 11 electric, wire line, CRXS, 3,100 feet of parallel electric, 4 poles, 3 anchors. And then it specifically lists out 1 drain intake, 175 feet of fence at City Park, 1 other fence, Big Stone Road, Adams Street, Main Street, part of First Avenue. Has anybody checked to see what they actually did and if any of this stuff is for real?
Well, that's interesting, because that Big Stone Street, is that private property? Is that the crossing that's out behind Northland Drive?
They probably got
Well,
so far out from the railroad side.
Yep.
Like the fence is that.
Right, but that would be-
Chain link fence right there.
But I
Would that be
believe-
us, or would that be
Yeah.
Northland Drive?
Because what we're being billed for here on the first one was that it said that it was sewage pipe, 1,400 feet, 1 drain intake. They're not specific enough for me. Well, you could replace 42 different drain intakes along that railroad. 175 feet of fence at City Park. I don't recall seeing that within the last, the invoice date is from November 25th.
Well, the fence would.
At Four Seasons Park.
Yep. And then on the second one for the 667, there's fee details, abandoned existing buried 5-inch PVC pipe containing 3 15 kV wire, 1,300 feet MP 65, and construct 1 5-inch PVC pipe, 1,308 feet, located in Arlington. Was that what they did on the south side of the, north side of Four Seasons Park, south side of that substation? Because they worked right along in there for about a month.
Oh, yeah.
Because there was, Michael Spence was in there, and there was 3 other miscellaneous contractors. Is that what we're paying for?
No, that was Center Point Energy that you're talking about.
Okay. Because there's this, I mean, you gotta pay it regardless, or it'll take you to the cleaners, but 667, there's really no explanation to me of what they did. And it sounds like there's a heck of a lot more in this compared to the $14,000 one. Just for materials and time use.
Councilmember Buss, I want to remind you to keep your mask up in place, please.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, is that something we can, is there some?
I think that's
Yeah,
what
it's-
Carson wanted to say something else.
Okay, Ross, did you have some more comments on that?
well, Mr. Mayor, one thing that caught my ear, I heard something about a park fence line, and I don't recall that ever being part of a city easement that we had to pay for. So I'm wondering about that. You know, and if it's a border fence, you know, between the city park and the railroad right of way, I think that's something we could certainly argue about.
Could we have them actually come out and like meet with Kirby and show them these areas to where you can present it to us?
Yeah, if there's a map of the layout. I mean, you gotta pay it regardless, right? You can't.
Well, unless things are just not.
Well, yeah, it says in Arlington. Well, Arlington is a fairly big place on my map.
Well, I think it wouldn't hurt to
Get away from me.
Well, I mean, just to go over it, they can hurt.
Yeah, just to know what the city is getting.
Right. Oh,
yeah,
like
I
attorney-
think it wouldn't hurt to review that again and compare notes with the railroad people. I know going way back, I want to say 20 years ago, they got more active in wanting to charge us for this stuff. They always had the right to do so, but I don't think they kept good records of what was crossing their right of way. But then they did an update and presented the city with you know, these easement charges. The city engineer looked at it very closely, and I want to say about a third of the crossings that the railroad came up with either didn't exist or no longer existed, or were not city crossings. They were crossings by some other, company or utility. And, but we got that all worked out. And at that point, at least, all those years ago, I think we did have a meeting of the minds as to what the city should be charged for. But, maybe it's time to get that all updated. And especially if they're adding a few things, I think that's something our city engineer should look at closely.
So don't we already own the rights to what the engineers did 20 years ago or 15 years ago, whenever they reviewed it before? So can't we go off those documents and then see what else is added and then be specific in what we're asking the engineers for, not that we're throwing them the whole two documents?
Well, that's my story, is that when you open it up.
No.
We
We
could
wanna-
$20,000 for them to try to figure out. what they
Yeah,
want.
no.
That's why I'm thinking that if the railroad, if they would come out, we're requesting them to come out and explain these particulars with us in the area.
And then if we have questions.
If we had Kirby with them.
Yeah.
And that's all hypothetically that they're willing to do that.
Because this isn't, the way it looks here to me is the way it's billed is it's not the actual railroad itself that we're dealing with. It's this Omega Rail Management from Tennessee. So they're
Right,
they're basing it on their past record.
Yeah, if somebody did something or whatever was done and they zapped out a bill, well.
Yes.
So can I make a motion to strike that payment to Omega Railroads off of the consent agenda?
What we're gonna have to do is Joseph have to restate his motion for the consent agenda. We'll have to go back and strike this one.
Yeah, and then redo it. Wait, you hear that, Joe?
Is there any late fee penalties or anything?
Oh, quite possibly. I'm sure we may get a late fee for not.
Because, I would rescind the not paying the one in question, but if we have, there's many of them that are.
I think there's
not really in question.
Amy had two bills that she had forwarded to me. One for $14,395.16, and then the other one was $667.57. Due date was 1/1/21 and 1/1/21. And there's invoice date of November 25th, 2020.
So, what I'm suggesting again is, if you want to get some, show them that we're going to pay the ones we think are accurate, and if we know there's some that we're really concerned about, those are the ones we hold off on. We don't stop on the whole work.
Yeah, I believe that is the entirety of it, the 15,062.73, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So at this time, everything that the consent agenda would stay the same? Is that we're not rescinding anything or changing anything, is that what you're saying? Councilman Morgan?
Well, I'm trying to, there's a lot of numbers thrown out. I'm not looking at it. I'm trying to figure out, is it $2,000? Is it, what?
You would just strike the ones that are
Oh,
properly
it was only
mentioned.
667 is the one in question.
And 14,000.
Oh, and 14. So
This
there's,
is the other one.
but there's two separate ones.
Yep, there's two separate ones in the one amount.
On the consent agenda.
Have we ever dealt with this Omega Rail Management before in the past? I'm assuming once a year or what?
I'm assuming that this is approved every first meeting.
Or is this work that has to be done? Work that has been done?
This is
This
just
is
for
just an
the
easement. It
we
has
have.
nothing to do with work was
Have
done
them
or not.
Okay.
These are just easements. So it's
easement for the fence, easement for the drain.
Yep.
like Attorney Arneson said, it's like paying rent.
Yeah.
So
Yep,
that's
on the property.
It has nothing to do with projects.
Right.
Gotcha. Yep.
I think we're just right now better off paying it than looking
looking into it.
Looking into it, trying to dig up, if we have that engineer from the last time they did it, get that document, review that, and then based on that.
That compared to now.
Right.
See if there's anything.
Because I would be interested in the fence, because I'm not aware of the fence. That's on easement, I mean, the drain, I know of that.
And I'm assuming in the railroad, you know,
That's
because
fairly close.
the Department of Transportation regulates all that stuff. Anything that they do for the railroad or management, city entities or municipalities, that's all approved through basically PennDOT.
And I would suggest just moving the fence if it's like 5 feet, it's not. I mean,
Because
there's
there's
a lot of room there.
I'm guessing back when that fence was put up, that was before the railroad light, because I know when we, at Sunstone,
When they made it quicker, right?
they made things wider, so we had to move all our block about 10 feet the other way because they widened out there. And that's the same reason, that's why the old elevators, because they were right in there too.
Yeah. I thought it was because of the speed, like it was all.
Speed was the other thing, but it also had, I think it had to do with how, with the width. But I'm sure that fence at one time when it was put up was on, I want to think that something happened where they extended it, they made it wider when they brought the speeds up.
Makes sense. Well, so.
All right.
I'm just concerned about getting the engineer involved and spending a boatload of money. I'm
Could
trying
we-
to just
Could
ask
we reflect
questions.
of what, I'm assuming city council had to pay this bill last year, right? Could we see if at least it's at least the same as last year?
Mm-hmm. We can pull,
Get a little
Lisa
history on
has
that.
those files.
Yeah.
I can ask her to pull some more information.
Okay.
All right, we'll get a
Let's
little
start
more
there.
information on that and bring that back to a future meeting. I have to apologize to Attorney Arneson. I forgot about the part of the agenda where you had sent out a letter or prepared a letter for the council members. And I would, could you take over and go through that?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I presume the council members all have a copy of that memo.
Yes.
And it's one that I put together over the years and modified as time went by. If any individual council members have a question on any of it or want me to elaborate, feel free to contact me directly. But just as an overview, attendance at meetings is important, and establishing a quorum is important. So if you know that you have an upcoming conflict with a meeting, you should advise the city administrator as soon as you can, so that if it turns out that the plans of various council persons might cause us to not have a quorum, that would be an issue. And then we would want to see if we could work around it somehow. Maybe one or more councilmen being able to change their plans, for example. So just something to keep in the back of your minds that if you think you're going to miss a meeting, let the city administrator know as soon as possible. Section 2 talks about oversight of city business, and oversight as opposed to supervising city business. The council is a governing body and acts as a group to establish city policies and procedures. The councilman should not and should guard against any tendency to want to directly supervise any city projects or employees. That creates confusion in the minds of the employees and the citizens as to how city government is supposed to run. And in some cases, it could create personal liability for a council person. There have been some court cases where, let's say a councilman is on a work site and starts ordering people around and somebody gets hurt, that the councilman may be personally liable. That's a very rare occurrence, but it could happen. Now, you are generally immune from any liability as long as you act as a council or as a body. City government and most other government bodies have that immunity if you're just working as a group and setting general policy and procedures. Then you're immune from personal liability if a policy or procedure, may eventually create some injury or accident or loss. As a group, you're protected. So stay with the group is the moral of that. In communicating concerns, you should act as a line of communication between the citizens and either city staff or the council itself. So if a citizen comes to you with a complaint that there's a pothole in front of their house that hasn't been patched, your response should be, I'll report that to the city office. Or if it's a more general issue or problem, the best response is, I'll bring that up at the next city council meeting. And then you would ask the city administrator to add it to the agenda. And that's the proper procedure to act as a go-between between the citizens and the council. You don't ever want to give the citizens the impression that you're their go-to person or their one-on-one problem solver, because then the citizens have the idea that they can basically chase you all over the city for any minor concerns they might have. That's not something you want to get involved in or get bogged down with. So you always want to make it clear to the citizens that you're their representative, but the council or the city staff are the ultimate problem solvers. And I know that's hard to resist. If a citizen comes to you and they're quite upset or aggrieved about a certain problem, as a public spirited official, and you are public spirited because you've agreed to serve on the city council, you do have that impulse to always try and be the immediate problem solver. But please take my advice that you don't want to get sucked into that mode. Again, if a complaint or a problem is brought to you, the response to the citizen is, thanks, I'll see to it, I'll report that to city staff. Or if it's, again, a more general problem or policy issue, thanks for your input. I'm going to get that put on the agenda at the next city council meeting. And by the way, you as the citizen who raised the issue, perhaps you'd like to be put on the agenda in order to speak directly to the council about your feelings regarding this issue. So, that's the best way to handle things in your interaction with the citizens. As far as your votes, I'm skipping around a little bit in the order of the memo, but there are a couple schools of thought. One school of thought is that you try to get the pulse of the community on a certain issue and then vote based on what you think the community's wishes are. The other general approach is you vote your own conscience, feeling that the citizens have elected you to do that they respect your logic and your common sense and your intelligence, and that you're going to use that to inform your votes. I'd say the best is kind of a middle of the road approach where, you try to get the pulse of the community as much as you can, but then in the end, you still vote your own conscience. One problem with trying to vote the community's wishes is it's very, very hard to know what those wishes are. You're always going to hear from the, the people that are at the extreme ends of any issue, the ones that are most upset about something, and you're not going to hear from the silent majority. And so, if you get 6 irate phone calls about something, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the feeling of the entire community. Now, if you get a petition signed by 300 or 500 people, that's a very rare occurrence, but that I'd say is a solid indication of the community's thought on a certain subject. But you're not normally going to have the luxury of that, 300 or 500 signature petition on a certain subject. You're going to have, again, 2 or 3 or 4 or 6 phone calls, and it's maybe a little dangerous to take that again as the wishes of the majority of the community. So in the end, the best approach is to vote your own conscience or what you logically feel is the best solution for the community. And if the community strongly disagrees with your pattern of voting, well, then you'll know that at the next election. Okay, so now one other point, I mentioned the right phone calls, and this is towards the end of the memo. It's very important for you to understand that as an elected official, you're already doing a great service to the community, and you do act as a community's representative. But that in no way means that any citizen should abuse you in any way. And, we have a very nice community, and it's been a very rare occurrence over the years that we get somebody who is harassing council people. But if that ever occurs, I would like to know that. And depending on what the situation is, there is even legal or criminal action that can be taken. But at the very least, I'm happy to contact the citizen and tell them to cool their jets. So, if somebody is making phone calls at 2 o'clock in the morning, to complain about something they've already talked to you about 6 times, at some point it rises to the level of harassment. And that's not part of what you signed up for when you decided to run for office. Also, citizens should respect your privacy as far as the time of day they call or, dropping by the house uninvited. If somebody occasionally does that and they're very polite and respectful of your, your family life, that's fine. I guess you can, decide if you want to allow that or not. But again, it's not part of what you sign up for somebody to, pound on your door at 10 o'clock at night in order to have some heated discussion with you about a city issue. That's not respectful of your privacy, and you shouldn't tolerate it. I don't want to scare the new council people. The last time I can recall an issue with a particular citizen was probably 7 or 8 years ago. So it's a very, very rare occurrence, but I just wanted to get that out there to you. So any immediate questions about the memo?
Yeah, my phone number's not public. I've only had one person stop on it, so.
I think it's individually what you feel comfortable with or what you don't feel comfortable with.
Yeah,
You know,
I
like,
don't know very many people either, so it's not good.
Good.
Does anyone have any questions for Ross?
No, I don't.
Oh, and by the way, again, as city attorney, I feel I serve the council as a whole, but any individual council person, whoever, has a question or needs a clarification about something, certainly, I am open for you to contact me individually. And if you want to have a confidential discussion with me, you just need to let me know that, and it will remain confidential. Again, it's not something that comes up very often. I would say maybe once or twice a year, perhaps a council person may have a question, maybe something they aren't sure is an issue, or aren't sure if it's something the council can address or not, and they just are more comfortable discussing it with me. That's fine. That's part of my function. Oh, and by the way, also at the very end of the memo, I mentioned the League of Cities, and they have a website that has a wealth of information on it. And I strongly encourage you all to check that out. Just kind of troll around the site a little bit and see what's available. And in fact, that's a resource that the mayor and the city administrator and I use very often. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. And so whenever there's a question that we don't have an immediate answer to, we find out from the league if other cities have had the same question and whether the league has a ready answer for us. So check that website out. I don't have anything further, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Ross. One thing that came across as I was thinking here, one of the things that we're reminded of often, and this is on emails going back and forth, do not reply all. Never, never, never reply all. If you're answering something to Amy, answering something to whoever, just if the message comes from Amy, reply to Amy, and otherwise you get a out of meeting discussion going with the other council members. Inadvertently, of course, but so just be careful with that.
Mr. Mayor, I appreciate that. That is a very important point, and it has to do with the open meeting law. And cities can be cited for that if you basically have a meeting over the internet. And so if the city administrator, for example, sends out an informational email about a subject, she will most often make a comment there, do not reply all. And that's the reason for it, as the mayor just stated.
well, that's also in response to phone calls too, right? Chain calling as well?
Yes. Anything that approaches the council having a discussion and possibly even reaching some conclusion outside of a publicly announced meeting is considered a violation of the open meeting law. So if you have a one-on-one conversation with another council person or a one-on-one email exchange, that's fine. But as you just mentioned, you don't chain it together, where A calls B, who then calls C, who then calls D, and then you've got the entire council involved. That would be considered a violation of the open meeting law.
Okay. Thank you, Ross.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. You're the one that brought it up.
No, but I appreciate your expanding on it. Thank you. Anything else? Any further discussion?
Thanks for the end of the year update and your
Oh,
notes and
you're
the
welcome. You're welcome.
monthly publication. That's
Yeah.
good.
Thanks to Denise at the office for prodding me to do something in that vein. So
That was nice.
thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Motion by Councilmember Morgan, second by Councilmember Batchor to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Meeting adjourned at 8:24.
Just a reminder that we have a workshop on the 11th at 6:30 here. We're gonna talk about that water treatment study. And I'd also like to talk about 2021 goals.
If anyone would like to get their picture done, contact me or my wife, I guess contact my wife. Evenings are the best if you want to schedule it. It's painless. So I'll give you a